Hi, everyone. We're just going to let everyone hop on. Hope everyone's having a great summer. It's a good time to work on your resumes. So I'll get started. My name is Susan Houssaye. I'm SOPA's career advisor here, and I have a background in recruiting. So I was the person who would post job descriptions, read all the resumes, read the cover letters, and then decide who was going to be sent to upper management and then eventually participate in interviews with candidates all the way through the hiring process and getting them in the door. So hopefully you all will appreciate advice from the inside. And also, if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to add them in the chat or reach out to me afterwards. If you're a SOPA student, you can always schedule a time to meet with me. So I will dive right in. We're going to start talking about resumes and cover letters. And what I always say is there is no secret to a resume. It just has to be perfect. And, recruiters are only looking at resumes for, I would say, 8 to 10 seconds, and they're really just skimming it. And some things that are really important that I have highlighted here are your education. You always want your name, contact information up at the top. I know we all like to get creative sometimes and had a student put theirs down at the bottom. And I'm like, no, the recruiter doesn't have time to search around for things. So if you are currently in school, you want to have your education up at the top. If you, at some point when you have graduated and your experience is most recent, then you want to move your experience up to the top and then put your education under your experience. But those are the two most important sections. I know this resume here doesn't have like an objective or a professional summary. And oftentimes I recommend those if you are just trying to fill one page. If you aren't, this serves you very well. Resumes are for bullets and cover letters, I say, are for paragraphs. So you really don't need an objective or a professional summary if you're going to apply and attach a cover letter. Some organizations do require you to attach a cover letter, and some of them say you can add additional materials. I do recommend you add a cover letter if if that option is available, because the recruiter will know that you are serious about the job. I met with a recruiter recently who's hiring for NASA, and they said there were over 200 applicants and only 5 attached a cover letter. Well, guess who they called? The 5 who attached a cover letter. So recruiters have to find ways to weed candidates out, and that could be one of them. Up here at the top, your name. This is not a legal document, so whatever you want them to call you, if your name is Jonathan and you go by John, just put John. And so when you get hired and you're going through all the HR documentation, then you can, fill out your legal name. But whatever you want the recruiter and the interviewers to call you, that's what I recommend you put up here at the top. And it also should match your LinkedIn. Recruiters are looking at your social media, and LinkedIn is one of those. I had like a 4-page checklist of everything I needed to do before hiring a candidate. And one of those things was looking at their social media accounts. And LinkedIn is one of those. So you want to be easy for them to find on LinkedIn, which is why I do a hyperlink here. But you don't want them to be able to find you on other social media platforms. So just make sure those are all hidden, your personal ones, Instagram, and all those. So here, if I went by Susie, I could either put Susie or I could put it in quotes to let them know what to call me. So just know that, you can put whatever name you want to be called on your resume. That's important for the recruiter when they're speaking with you, and then also when they're introducing you in the room for the interview. Your email address should be the email that you check most often. It should be a professional email address. And also, please don't put two email addresses. The recruiters are confused. They're like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to use. So choose one professional email, and it's going to be the one you're checking most often. Next is going to be your cell phone number. And I encourage you to make sure that your voicemail isn't full. Sometimes recruiters do want to reach out to you on the phone if you're not being super responsive over email and they want to get you in the door quickly. I had a student just last semester, all of his interview was set up over the phone. So the recruiter did call, they did an email. Just so you know, they do still call. Here you want to put your city and state. It is, you don't need to put your whole address anymore. That is a bit of a security concern, and you don't need someone to Google where you live. And that is something you can also provide once you're hired and you're filling out your HR paperwork. I do like to include a hyperlink here that takes the recruiter directly to my LinkedIn so that they don't have to go search for me. This is already hyperlinked to my LinkedIn. And always send your resume out in a PDF, because then the hyperlink is just one click. Also, it keeps the document in a cleaner version. And if someone's opening your document in Word on a Mac or on a Dell, it can look different. And we can all have different versions of Microsoft Office. So if you send a PDF, you're going to make sure that they are seeing what you see on your end. So someone asked, if you're searching for a job in a city other than your current residence because you plan to move, which city should you include on your resume? For that, you can take out your city and state here, and you don't have to put one there. You could just have your contact information, which is fine, because I completely understand it could look confusing if you're putting New Orleans, but you're moving to New York City. So I would take out the city and state here, but I would write a cover letter, and we'll get to that. And your second sentence is going to be, I'm moving to New York City on August 1st. I'll be in New York the week of July 30th, available for interviews. Before then, I'm available via Zoom for interviews. So cover letters can, we can use ChatGPT to help us write them, but what the recruiter wants to see is something personal. So if you are from New Orleans or, and you're looking for a job here, that's also important to put New Orleans on here. Or if you're living in New Orleans now and you're going back to New York City and you grew up there, you want to put that in your cover letter, that you grew up in New York and you're excited about returning. If you are in New Orleans and you're going back to New York City and your family lives there and you already have a place to live there, then that's fine. You can put New York, New York right in here. So there's different ways to go about it. And I completely understand that that's a great question. So here you're going to have your everything associated with Tulane. If you're in a master's program or just undergrad, your information here. And then anything that you did while you were at Tulane, any student organizations, if you were on a sports team here, scholarships, honors, awards, all that goes under Tulane. And that is something that if you haven't joined a student organization yet, maybe join one. We have SOPASO, the SOPA student organization. Toastmasters is a really great, well recognized organization that is recognized all over the world. It's a public speaking organization. We have one at Tulane. And so those are the types of things that I recommend, is something related to your major. There's like PRSSA for public relations. There's ICMA. A lot of the MPA students are in that. So find something that's related to your major, and possibly something that is on multiple campuses or in all 50 states, because you might get in an interview with someone and they're like, oh, I'm in the ICMA chapter here in New York. So, or I did Toastmasters in Hong Kong. Like, it's literally all over the world. So those are just some things to, and don't just join it and never go to a meeting or participate because they might ask you about it. So make sure you do at least one thing with the student org if you're going to put it on your resume. For your experience, a lot of people think that their title is the most important. And I know this is gonna sound crazy, but where you worked actually ranks a little bit higher than what your title was. Yes, they're looking at what your title was, but people really look at where you worked. So if you did a student job at Tulane, this is going to be at the top. The organization where you worked is going to be bolded to stand out. For all of this, you want to make sure you're consistent. So as you will see, the name of the company where you worked, even the comma after the company name here is bolded. So down here, you also want it bolded. This is not bolded. The title of your job is italicized with the comma italicized. There are dashes in between the dates of the month that you worked. This is a long dash. If you have a long dash here, make sure you're using long dashes throughout your entire resume. I know this sounds particular, but I've reviewed thousands of resumes, and these are the things that my eye caught, and it's only one page. So make it perfect. Here you're going under your education and your experience are what is going to lead, and it goes in reverse chronological order. So what you've done most recently here. If your master's degree was most recent, this job that you're currently working in, or your most recent jobs, and then you go in reverse. Skills are really important. So these should also match what is on your LinkedIn profile. Any certifications that you have, and you can, change this up to make it, different. If you need to fill the page more, there's just different tricks that you can do, including playing with the margins. And here you'll see in the layout tab, I've customized the margins so they're wider than normal. Normally there's a 1-inch margin. I have the top set at 0.4. I have the bottom set at 0.4, the left at 0.5, the right at 0.5. You can play around to fit things into your resume. So just know when you're like, I can't fit anything else, you might be able to. Languages are great. Any volunteer experience, I do highly recommend you put that on here. I'm a volunteer for Son of a Saint in New Orleans. It's a really popular volunteer organization. It's really well recognized. So if I'm interviewing, I might end up in an interview with someone who also volunteers for Son of a Saint, or they've been wanting to volunteer for Son of a Saint. And I can tell them, Oh my gosh, the volunteer coordinator is so great. I actually signed up to volunteer with them on a Friday evening, and the volunteer coordinator wrote me back at 7:30 on a Friday night to welcome me to the organization and give me more information. So these are things that do matter and can create a connection piece in an interview and kind of take it in a more personal direction. And I love interest. I know not everyone feels the same way that I do, but it tells me a little bit about your personality. And if you're going to be working with someone 40 plus hours a week, you kind of want to know what they do in their free time. So if you're into baking and someone else loves to bake, it can create a connection. So I do recommend you have 5, and I'm going to send you all a list of like hundreds of hobbies that you can choose from. And I just think it's fun. I sent a resume of a student to a recruiter here in New Orleans recently, and she replied to my email, and the only thing she commented on were his interests. And one of them was that he had done an ultra marathon, and her comment was, I'm sorry, like we don't have any openings right now, but I'm going to keep this candidate in mind. And she actually did follow up about him. I see that he has completed an ultra marathon, so that tells me a lot about him. So interests do matter, and recruiters are looking at just black and white pieces of paper. So anything that can catch their eye, this is one of them. I have hiking on mine, and I like to hike. So people were like, where do you hike around here? And I can tell you all, there is a great hike on the North Shore, the Gorge Run Trail. So anyway, and that's something I could share in an interview, follow up, include a link to the trail with more information in my thank you email after the interview. And I think people would appreciate that. So this is a resume that is typical for corporate positions. And I know we have a lot of students who are in marketing and IT and media and design and PR, and their resumes might be a little bit more colorful. And you can buy a template on Etsy, or you can use Canva to create it. And this is just a student that I thought was very nice looking. She used color, and it was, I thought, really well done. So I just wanted to give you all an idea of what a resume can look like that isn't the standard black and white, but just kind of adding a little bit of pop. And, she's a creative, she's in a creative job industry, and this showed her personality. So I really liked this one. I kept it as a sample because I thought it was impressive. And if you're in a creative industry, I think that this is something that someone would be interested in seeing. If you're applying for a paralegal position, or something in finance, then the resume that I showed you all is going to be the standard. The other thing, and this all holds true to both resumes, your bullets should start with an action verb, describe the job duties. Your present position, if this is your present job, all these action verbs at the beginning of your bullets should be in present tense. Make sure any jobs that you had in the past, all the action verbs at the beginning, managed, supervised, coordinated, all of those will be in past tense. So when you leave a job and you're updating your resume, make sure to go back and change those to past tense. And then your current position will all be in present tense. Also, abbreviations, like if you're putting the name of a student organization that you're in, or something that you're referring to that has an abbreviation or an acronym that you think everyone might be familiar with, spell it out and then just put the acronym in parentheses. The recruiter doesn't want to waste time going and Googling an acronym. And then maybe that acronym applies to multiple organizations and the recruiter's confused and then they're just annoyed. They're like, the recruiter, something that is really like, something you've been involved in that is just second nature to you, maybe the recruiter doesn't know about that organization. So spell everything out and no periods at the end of the bullets. A bullet is not a complete sentence, but your complete sentences are going to be in your cover letter. And we'll hop over to that next. So no periods at the end of bullets. If you are diehard and you want periods at the end of your bullets, that's totally fine. Either way, just be consistent. Like, you're not going to get dinged. It's if you have periods at the end of some of your bullets and not at the others, then employers are looking for people who pay attention to detail. So all of these give the recruiters and the employer signals how detail oriented you are. Here is a sample cover letter. I just take the header from my resume, copy and paste it, put it here. So if the recruiter, I used to go sit in a conference room, I know it's a waste of paper, but I would print out all the resumes and I would have stacks. Yes, no, maybe. And I might have hundreds of resumes. So I needed everyone's name on everything. And if someone matched their resume to their cover letter, I sure did appreciate that. So I'd be like, wait, what does this go with? So you don't need to include the date because that might be something you might forget to change. Also, if the posting does not say who to address it to, just put dear hiring manager or to who it may concern. It's best not to guess who to address it to, because there can be multiple people at an organization who are hiring for different positions. I did attorney hiring at a law firm, and then our director of HR would do hiring for staff. And so some of the attorneys would address it to our director of HR. So I'd be immediately confused because I'm like, wait, did they want a staff position? So don't guess unless they tell you who to address it to. You don't have to waste your time. In this first paragraph, the first sentence, I always, when I'm doing a sample cover letter and I'm saving it for myself, I always highlight that first sentence in bright yellow because I'm going to change that first sentence every time. You don't need to mention the name of the job, that the position that you're applying for, or the company that you're applying to anywhere else in the cover letter, because you're setting yourself up to maybe forget to change that when you're applying to another job. And I've seen it a million times when someone is applying to work at a law firm and then they put another law firm's name, they forget to change it down in their last paragraph, and that is a ding. And some of the attorneys would be like, yeah, I don't even want to see this candidate. They have no attention to detail, and so that resume would just go in the garbage. So I do want to set you all up for success. So I recommend, and when I'm applying for jobs, I only mention the name of the job and the company that I'm applying to in that first sentence. Now, the reason why you want to mention the name of the job is, recruiters are hiring for multiple positions at a time. Sometimes I would have over 20 positions open, and you're thinking like, well, don't they know what I'm applying for? Maybe not. If they're applying for multiple jobs and then they print everything out and then they're going back through them days later, you need to include the title of the job in that first sentence. This is where what we talked about earlier, to be sure to mention any geographic ties to the area. If you're from New Orleans, I put in my cover letter, I was born and raised in New Orleans and I'm committed to staying here. So they know I have family here without me telling them. if someone suggested that you apply for a job at a company where they work, you can say, so and so who was in your marketing department recommended that I applied to this position. Also, this is where if you're currently at Tulane and you're going to go back to where you grew up, you can mention that I've been in New Orleans for the past 4 years. I'm looking forward to returning to New York City where I grew up. And if you're moving somewhere that you've never lived before, but you are in the process, you just like I said earlier, you can say, I'm moving to New York City on August 1st. I'll be in the city on these dates, available for an interview beforehand. I'm also available via Zoom. Many people get jobs just being hired via Zoom. I hired attorneys over Zoom, never met them during the pandemic. It's just common practice now. So that's fine. You can even be in the same city and get a job over Zoom and not have to go into the office at all. This second paragraph is where you want to sell yourself. You highlight your resume. You don't have to say everything you've ever done. You just really want to hit home what experience you have or what about your education ties you to this job. So you can say, something about the courses that you took that prepared you for this job, and or a job that you have had that has prepared you for this job, why you're excited about it, what things in the job description caught your attention. And a recruiter looks at a cover letter for 5 to 7 seconds. They're looking for some nice paragraphs, no bullets on a cover letter. A cover letter should not be 2 pages, and they're not going to read the entire thing. So that's really where I recommend in this first paragraph, you hit home any geographic ties to the area or anyone that you know who works at that company. Here, they're going to look at that first sentence. They might gloss over the middle, but you just really want to make sure, like I said, like your resume, it's perfect. If you're just doing one space in between sentences, don't have a mistake and have 2 spaces here. I've seen people mess up and put an extra space before a period. Just make sure it's perfect. Run it through, ChatGPT, Grammarly, Hobop, whatever. And also the last paragraph, you can just always keep the same. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope to have the opportunity to meet with you to discuss my candidacy. And that's it. It can be 2 sentences, really simple. And so people kind of stress out over a cover letter, but it doesn't have to be really long. It just has to get to the point and kind of tell your story in that middle paragraph about who you are. And if you don't have geographic ties or a person who suggested you here, you just want to hit home maybe 3 skills that you have. You could highlight some soft skills, your attention to detail, or things along those lines. You could write about here. If you didn't put any soft skills on your resume and you just put hard skills, like platforms that you are familiar with, then that's a good place where you can mention those soft skills that you have, your communication skills and things along those lines. So I'm also going to touch on, which isn't in the title of this webinar, but one last document that you should have in order when you are applying for a job is your references. You'll see I copied my header for my resume and my cover letter here just so they all match. And then you want to have 3 references. When a company is about to make you an offer, they'll typically ask you for your references so you kind of know. But you want to have this document ready to email them when they ask. And it's got to be, three people. It could be a professor, it can be someone you've worked with, who, it doesn't have to be a former boss. It can be someone who was your equal, or even someone who worked below you. Um, when I worked at LSU Law School in the Career Services office, the receptionist there, who we were in a small office very closely with. She took over my position after I left. She's a great reference for me, and she was in a position below me, but now she has my job. And it doesn't matter. It's just someone who is going to be your cheerleader, and they're going to say great things about you, and they've seen you in the trenches. They've seen you when things get really hectic and busy, and how you handle things in a work setting or in the classroom. And they've communicated with you professionally. So it just needs to be someone who, in your gut, they're going to say great things about you when they get that call. And when an employer asks for your references, you always want to text those three people separately and say, hey, I just want to let you know I've been interviewing for this job at Tulane. I'm really excited about it. This is the title. I put you down as a reference. So please be on the lookout for a phone call or an email from Tulane, because a lot of people don't, they're not going to answer their cell phone if they don't recognize the number, or they're not maybe checking their emails all the time. So just giving someone a heads up really helps. And a lot of times they'll text you back and be like, oh yeah, I got a call. So then you are reassured that it all happened, which is nice. And I'll show you all. So you do want to make sure everything on your resume matches your LinkedIn profile. And if you are on LinkedIn and you're going to include a hyperlink on your resume, you do want to make sure your page is filled out. And you don't have to fill out every section. You just want to make sure you have, this photo is updated. You can use Canva to make a LinkedIn profile photo. They have, if you just type in on Canva LinkedIn profile photo, it is these exact dimensions in this rectangular. And you can play with it, make new ones. I usually change mine all the time. Make sure you have a professional headshot. We will be having headshots on campus again this semester, so please come out. Even if you come before, you want to update your photo, you can always come back. And I'll send you all the link to Cool Symbol, where you can, add a little bit of pop of color in here. And make sure you're connecting with people. Connect with me, connect with other students, connect with your professors, because you never know who can help you along the way. And it might not be tomorrow, but it might be 10 years from now where you're going to reconnect with someone. I'm totally fine with this about section being really short. I do have a little bit more on here, but you don't need all this. And just make sure your experience matches your resume, the dates and everything. Also, your education is updated, any licenses and certifications. We do all get LinkedIn Learning for free, which you can do certifications on LinkedIn Learning and add those to your profile. Any volunteering that you've done, put that on here. Any skills, add those. Ask for recommendations from people. And this section down at the bottom is so important. So if you're looking for a job in a certain industry and you have your heart set on working at Deloitte, let's just use them as an example. I want you to, broaden your horizons and kind of, follow Deloitte's page to see if there's any jobs opening at Deloitte, because a lot of these companies are posting on here. But this is gold over here, is pages people also viewed. So they looked at Deloitte, but they also looked at these other pages. And so you can go on here and be like, you know what? I'm going to look at EY2 and PwC and Accenture and IBM and da da da. So this can give you other ideas of where to look for positions, and also follow these companies, because so many of them are posting jobs through their homepage, and their link, they'll put direct links to their website that will take you to their careers page where you can apply for jobs. On Indeed, I do recommend, if you are looking at a job on Indeed, to try to go to the company page and apply through the company website. Recruiters get an email immediately if you apply through the company website, as opposed to them having to go and check a third-party platform. I'm going to say 99% of the candidates that I have hired in my lifetime, they applied through the company website. I know it's easier to apply through Indeed, but if it's going to up your chances, just take that extra step. If you can't apply through the company website, then go back to Indeed and apply that way. In New Orleans, another great place that students look is Worknola. Most major cities are going to have a site similar to this. And then also we have Handshake, where a lot of companies are posting. I think my Handshake probably looks different than yours. So make sure you're signed in to Handshake, maybe searching for jobs on here. I know students have told me that they've filled out their profile and actually recruiters have reached out to them via Handshake. So it does work. I was just talking to a student yesterday and they're like, oh yeah, this organization reached out to me on Handshake. Because she had uploaded everything and had her profile filled out. So those are all great places to look for jobs. And on LinkedIn, you could always follow organizations that are also going to have networking events in your industry, local networking events. The New Orleans Chamber of Commerce is great. You can go to any New Orleans Chamber of Commerce networking events. And if you just email me, I'll let you know how to sign up. And we are, I'll usually go to a lot of the networking events. There's Work in Tech in New Orleans that is put on by GNO Inc. So maybe you'll want to follow GNO Inc. on here. So there's lots of ways to find out about. Eventbrite also has a lot of networking events. Okay, we have another question. On resumes, should we prioritize jobs that are the most relevant to the job we are applying to, or the jobs that are most recent? For example, if job 1 is super relevant, job 2 isn't relevant at all, and job 3 is super relevant, should we exclude job 2? Or leave it in so that the employer doesn't see a gap on the resume? The answer is leave it in so the employer doesn't see a gap on the resume. I personally have a job that does not relate to what I'm currently doing. That is right about here, but I had that job for 5 years. So I definitely kept it on there. The employers are looking at consistency in employment and at the dates. So you don't want to leave something out. It's totally okay if you did something else that's not relevant. All job experience is good experience. They'll know you worked in an office. Look, I've done everything. I've bussed tables. I've worked in a coffee shop, clothing store, all of that. And all of those jobs are hard and they're relatable. So don't discount anything that you've ever done, because someone, could be in an interview with you and they're like, "Oh, I was a lifeguard too," or I worked in a coffee shop. My coffee shop job was my favorite job ever. Um, so so someone asked, how specific should we be on the experience, both on a resume and on LinkedIn? Okay, you might have seen. So, you know, there's only 3 bullets here, but if you've been at a job for 10 years, then you're going to have a lot of bullets. So just kind of based on how long you've been at a job, then that kind of bills your bullets. Um, but on LinkedIn, you all may have noticed I don't have the bullets from my resume on LinkedIn. And that is just a personal preference. I'm a minimalist, so I don't I don't want to have like all the bullets from my resume on here, but that's just me. So you can do whatever you want. You can add all the bullets from your resume if you want. And that's why I'm saying, like, it's totally your personal preference with what you want to put on here. And so go through these profile sections and um make sure they're all updated. Some of these you're not going to have, so don't let it intimidate you. Like, I don't have a career break. And then in the recommended section, I don't have projects and I don't have courses, but you might want to add the titles of some of the classes that you've taken because those are really relevant. And then in the additional, I don't have publications, patents, honors and awards, test scores, languages. So don't think that you have to fill out every section on LinkedIn. You don't. Um, I don't have causes, but so I don't have a lot of these, but the sections that you do fill out, make sure they're complete, right? But a recruiter isn't saying like she doesn't have any patents. Like they're not expecting you to have all of it filled out. And it's okay if you don't want all of the bullets from your resume on your LinkedIn page. It's totally a personal preference. And I am just like, I like to keep mine clean, and not put all my bullets on there. And then if I'm applying for a job, they'll see all my bullets on the resume. So y'all have had some great questions, and I'll follow up with an email of everything that we discussed, a copy of the recording. You're welcome to share it with friends, family members. And then I'll send you all templates, resume, cover letter, references, and anything else we discussed. But thanks for joining and enjoy the rest of your day.